Good morning and welcome to the Analog Toys live stream. I've been looking forward to this one. This is a discussion I've wanted to have for a while about the pros and cons of the various action figure scales that we received as children in the 60s, 70s, 80s, and even on to today, I suppose. All the usual suspects in the chat: Kieran Ball, Carl Rudy, Chris Miwa, hello, Michael Schaefer, George Aitken, Keith Knight. Right, before we proceed any further, I would like to wish my dear friend Keith Knight a very happy birthday. I think it was yesterday, Keith, or is it today? I get confused with the time zone thing. But happy birthday, Keith. Keith Holmesley, good to see you. That American Kid, Knights of Old. Is it the 6th of April there? Yes, it is. It's 3 minutes past 6 on Tuesday morning. And yes, I had a really good Easter. I hope everyone else had a really good Easter. I worked for most of it, but I actually, I have to work, have to have a day job. And it's not always nice having to work the weekends, but when I do work the weekends, there's no management around, and we don't get hassled. We just get on with our core job, and we don't get all this peripheral stuff being fired at us when there's no managers around. So everyone in the chat wishing Keith a happy birthday. Very kind of them. And George Aitken worked all the way through Easter as well. Respect to you, George. Yes, Carl Rudy says, birthday and a win at the footy. Nice weekend, Keith. That's right. Laser Pants, how you doing? Good to see you. And Dante's here as well. Dark Joker's in Legend Killer. Good to see you, Dante. So I want to talk about the pros and cons of action figure scales, because I obviously collect a lot of different lines in a lot of different scales. There were some really good choices made back in the day. There were some very poor choices also made. So I suppose we will start with the very first action figure, and that is G.I. Joe. So this is a vintage 1964 G.I. Joe action soldier, all original, one of the prize pieces in my collection, one of the very first action figures. Now, I believe... So at the time, boys did not play with action figures. It was a new concept, and there was a lot of concern within Hasbro at the time that parents would not want to buy a doll for boys. So they deliberately removed the word doll from any kind of advertising and referred to it as an action soldier, which became an action figure. We also had action pilots, action sailors, all this kind of thing. I believe this scale was chosen at the time because of girls playing with Barbie, similar scale. And the real benefit of the 1:6 scale or the 12-inch scale for these figures, actually, I meant to bring a tape measure down here, but I didn't, never mind. One of the real benefits of this is all of the accessories that you could equip your G.I. Joe with. And it's one thing that I particularly like, why I'm so fond of the Action Man toy line, is because unlike other toy lines that I loved when I was a child, Action Man, with him not being tied to any particular mythology, he didn't come from comics or movies or cartoons or anything like that. He was just a universal, everyman, adventurer, soldier, whatever you wanted him to be. And you could equip him with a whole wide variety of different accessories, weapons, clothing, the whole lot. My favorite Action Man became my best friend when I was a child. And that would not have been possible, in the 3 3/4-inch Star Wars scale, because it was either, what have we got here? Bespin Luke and Yoda. You couldn't, I know today people can customize the figures, but as a child, you got that figure and it was Luke Skywalker in his Bespin outfit or his Rebel Ground uniform. Whereas Action Man, I was able to to turn my Action Man into whatever I wanted him to be. And my favorite I had about 5 Action Man figures when I was a kid, 5 or 6. And my favorite Action Man figure, I wrote a like a dossier, a service record type file for him. He had a name, he had a code name, he had a place of birth, and he really became my closest companion when I was a child. If I was going to my grandparents for the weekend, my favorite Action Man would come with me, and he would bring a sleeping bag so he could sleep at my grandma's house. So, Nostalgic for the 70s says, I used to have many toys of many scales as a kid, but as a kidult, I only stick to classic G.I. Joe size 12-inch or Kenner 13-inch. And that's why I wanted to bring a tape measure down with me, because apparently the $6 Million Man is 13-inch and G.I. Joe is 12-inch. But there is clearly more than an inch difference between those two figures. G.I. Joe is actually more like 11.5 inches, and I think possibly, maybe, first of all, maybe the stand he's on is, 1/4 of an inch thicker than the G.I. Joe guy there. But I used to play with these toys together when I was a child. My $6 Million Man became part of my Action Man play scenarios, and the scale never bothered me that much. But it's when I set up this table yesterday, even though I've had these in the collection for so long, seeing them together, there really is a very stark comparison between the height of the $6 Million Man and the height of an original G.I. Joe. Daniel Dorian says, what's your favorite scale, Tony, if you can pick? I don't have a favorite scale, which is why I wanted to discuss this topic, because there are pros and cons. Action Man is my favorite toy line because it's British, it's heavy into military, which has always been a big passion of mine. As I said, I was able to customize the figures when I was younger, and it's just for a collector, Action Man just has such a broad scope. I was having this discussion with Ryan Laserpants in the Pala Talk about this, and he was saying that if you collect vintage, unless you're going to start collecting different country of origin stamps and different hair colors and whether it was made in Taiwan or Hong Kong. But beyond that, if you're collecting vintage, he said there's only a finite selection, and you can achieve that. The thing with Action Man is that finite selection is so enormous. The toy line ran for 18 years. There was such a wide variety of different uniforms, accessory packs, boxed figures, vehicles. I've been collecting Action Man, seriously collecting Action Man since 1993, and I have not completed the vintage run. I doubt I ever will, to be honest, because I haven't picked up anything Action Man in a long time. So, but to continue on with Daniel's question here, what's my favorite scale? I also really like the 3 3/4 inch scale because it enables you to get so many awesome vehicles. Particularly G.I. Joe and Star Wars are my favorite 3 3/4 inch scale because of the ability to have play sets, all kinds of different vehicles, from small Jeeps to large tanks to Cobra Hydroforce, thanks to Jody. There are pros and cons, so I don't have a favorite. The Model Vault says, no Energizer Spider-Man. That was very tall. I have an Energizer Spider-Man boxed in my collection, but I don't have it down here in the studio. It's upstairs. But I do have a few other things around here that I wanted to discuss. Yes, and hang on, if I can get the right comment there. Yeah, and George Aitken agrees. The pro for the 3.75 inch scale is bigger play sets and more vehicles. You look at the whole range of videos I've done about Palitoy's Action Force, you'll see all the different vehicles, right up to, you know, the large Z-Force headquarters, the Action Force cardboard headquarters, all that kind of thing. Minifigure collector says, what about the mask scale? I intended to put a few mask figures on here since I've had some very kindly donated from Chris Miwa. Unfortunately, I didn't get them on the table in time, and it's early in the morning here. And I normally set up the live stream the day before, but I took Gracie out for lunch at the pub, and we stayed there for quite a while. And I was in no fit state to set anything up yesterday. So it also smells really nice in this room. I'm going to tell you a funny story. I finished work on Sunday, and I've just done like 5 12-hour shifts in a row, or beyond 12 hours, really, more like closer to 13 hours. So when I finished on Sunday and I've got a 4-day break, I come home and it's like, right, I'm going to relax, have a few beers. And Grace went to bed relatively early and I stayed up and had quite a few beers. I started to get the hiccups. And when I get like that, I really disturb Grace. So I opted to sleep in the spare room, which is the studio here. I've got the spare bed over there, which is currently covered in Motu Origins because I haven't packed up yet from yesterday's video. But so I slept in here on Sunday night, and I didn't realize when I came into the room and shut the door to keep the cats out so they don't disturb me, that one of the cats was actually in the room. She was probably under the bed. When I woke up in the morning, I got woken up by the cat meowing, wanting to get out of the room. And I woke up and I was like, oh, it stinks of cat pee in here. I didn't realize I'd locked the cat in, and it took us ages to figure out where the smell was coming from. But we found the smell, we got it cleaned up, and cleaned up so much that it actually smells really, really good in here. So there you go. Michael Schaefer. Yeah, I was gonna touch on this later, but let's get into it now. Michael Schaefer says, the lack of scale consistency in the Transformers line. Yes, I know there were different lines imported from Japan. Still really bothered me as a kid. Likewise, it really bothered me. So I'm even reluctant to call them action figures. Obviously, I had that discussion last week. I think it was last week when Michael from Retroblasting joined the Analog Toys live stream, and we were discussing robots. So what really bothered me about Transformers, I don't actually think they're action figures. They're toy robots. They're not action figures. In my opinion, if you want to call them an action figure, that's up to you. But obviously, when they are in disguise mode, the scale is all over the shop. It is absolutely horrendous. But then, even when they're in robot mode, the scale is terrible again. Particularly when you take those mini Transformers, you know, Cliff Jumper and those kind of things, totally out of scale with Optimus Prime. That's what really turned me off that toy line when I was young. And George says, in the 80s, my cats decided to have their litters on the same night in my room. Noisy night that was. Yeah. Yeah, so more than one cat having litters on the same night, George. Wow. Daily J Myers. Hello, I'm a huge fan. I'm very young, but I still collect toys. So far, I got 1989 Ghostbuster Firehouse Kenner toy. Do you think that good so far for a collection? Every collection starts somewhere, man. And that's a very it's a very iconic piece to have. I recently acquired a Kenner Ghostbusters Firehouse myself, so. Nick says, Thundercats toys annoyed me as a kid as they seemed too bulky to go with my other toys. That was always going to be an issue in the 80s if you were trying to mix your different toy lines because of the wide variety of different scales in the 1980s. So Star Wars, 3 3/4 inch. Ghostbusters, what are they, like 4.5 inch? Masters of the Universe, maybe 5 inch. Rambo, maybe 6 inch, maybe even a bit more than 6 inch. He looks a little bit taller than Boba Fett there, which is obviously a modern 6 inch, which is the is the popular scale of today. Yeah, you could never get in the 80s when you were trying to cross over all these different toy lines. It was very, very difficult. Wow. It's Joseph. It's my buddy Joseph. So good to see you, Joseph. We haven't had a chance to catch up lately, but definitely really good to see you here on the stream. Awesome to see you back. So there was a few unusual choices made by toy lines. I'm trying to think where I'm going to start with this. If you take the original Kenner Star Wars release back in 1978, Kenner produced figures in two different scales. So we had the large size action figures, which some people call 1/6 scale, although they kind of vary from 12 inch up to like 14 inch for Chewbacca and Darth Vader. But then also went with the 3.75 inch. The large size Kenner action figures did not sell well. They became peg warmers. And that is because as much as children wanted the action figures, they also wanted the X-Wings and the TIE Fighters and the Millennium Falcons, which you couldn't make in that larger scale. So it's not that Kenner kind of nailed it first time, because they're actually hedging their bets. They went with two different scales. They put out 12 inch, which had been very popular through the 70s with things like G.I. Joe and Action Man. But then, the sales in 1978 and 1979 told them that, hey, we don't need to bother continuing to produce these large scale action figures, because it's these smaller ones that people want. I was big into military toys as a kid and had a couple of Action Man figures. Connor Fuller, thank you for the super chat. And had a couple of Action Man. But when 12 inch BA turned up one Christmas, he was the boss. Yes. And as a matter of fact, I have the 12 inch Mr. T here. I'm going to talk about the A-Team a little bit later, because that was a very, very some very confusing decisions made by Galoob with that. We've got Retro Blasting in the house. Good to see you, Michael. I have often wondered why toy lines like Gem chose to go a totally different scale than Barbie. The same with some boys' lines like Brave Star that went wacky scale and hurt their cross compatibility. I've often wondered it myself. I really don't. I don't know what toy lines were, or toy companies were thinking. When G.I. Joe was re-released in the 3 3/4 inch scale, that was because their flagship brand G.I. Joe had died off. Star Wars made this new scale popular, and the company thought, hey, we can compete with this by utilizing the same scale but bringing out military style vehicles instead of space vehicles. And that worked, and you could cross over your G.I. Joes and your Star Wars. But then as the other lines in the 80s came out and everything was all over the place, I don't know whether it's because maybe the companies felt like using different scales meant that they were kind of avoiding direct competition with other toy lines. Question for the audience, because I'm not 100%. So I never had any Kenner superpowers when I was a child. I had some Marvel Secret Wars figures, which are far inferior. Were they the same scale? Because having your DC superheroes and your Marvel Secret Wars, that would be two toy lines I think you would want to cross over, but potentially couldn't. So let's discuss the A-Team for a moment. I had two scales of A-Team figures when I was a child. Whoops. I had the 3.75 inch and I had the 5.5 inch or 6 inch, whatever it is. I had both lines when I was a child. I seemed to play more with the 3 3/4 inch because I had the van. And obviously, Galoob did not release a large van with the big figures. I've never ever understood why Galoob went with not only 2 scales, but then also 3 with Mr. T. I really don't know why they did that. Now, admittedly, this Mr. T action figure is not actually branded as A-Team. This is just a Mr. T action figure, but it was released at the same time. It was manufactured by the same company. The head sculpt is a very similar likeness to the 6 inch figure. I've never understood why toy lines did that. Keith Holmesley said, I love it when scales come together. I hate it when scales don't come together. So one of the toys I just knocked over on the side here was, so I have here the 3 3/4 inch scaled Indiana Jones on his Arabian horse. I know this toy line really didn't sell well back in the early 80s, but it is a fantastic toy line, a really, really quality toy line. Fast forward a few years to Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom, and Kenner no longer has the Indiana Jones license. It's picked up by LJN, and they bring out Indiana Jones in a totally different scale. What a backwards decision to make. I would have thought they should have stuck with the same scale. And we only got 3 action figures anyway. I know the prototypes have surfaced of other action figures that were, they were going to do a short round figure and a Willie Scott figure and all that kind of thing, but they never followed through with it. I think there was going to be a minecart chase play set. But why didn't LJN come out with the same 3 3/4 inch scale as the original line, which is not called the Raiders of the Lost Ark toy line? It's called the Adventures of Indiana Jones, but it's a very, very weird decision to make. Keith Knight, yes. Did that Mr. T figure have various costumes? Like I seem to remember a firefighter. Yeah, there were 2 figures. I believe there were 2 figures. There was this Mr. T, and then there was a talking Mr. T. And then there were a couple of accessory packs, one of which was a firefighter. You are correct, sir. John Baldry says, later, Tony, catch you on the rewatch. John, it's a shame you have to go because I have a parcel here from you. If you've got to go, man, would you like me to open this now so that I don't... sorry, I had your address on there. So that I'm not... would you like me to open it now while you're still here on the stream? You let me know in the chat. Otherwise, I'll open it at the end. What was I talking about? Kieran Ball says, copyright and cost factors probably led to different size figures by different companies. I don't think it's copyright. Definitely cost. I completely agree with you on the cost factor piece. It's not copyright because you can't copyright the scale of an action figure. People can. Copyright is on the actual characters that you're producing, not the scale. But yeah, I feel as though some of the choices made, I think were excellent. I don't think Rambo, for example, would have suited the 3 3/4 inch scale because he's such an iconic character. He was a one-man army. Like he's the one character, a lot like Indiana Jones. He's the one main hero character. It's not, although they did turn Rambo into a team through the cartoon, but I think that was the ideal scale for Rambo because you could equip him with different accessories and weapons. The scale wasn't too big that you couldn't have helicopters and jeeps in the line. You know, we got a large play set. I think that was a good choice for that particular line. Left Coast Graphics. Yes, there was a 3.75-inch Rambo line, but it is far inferior to the 6-inch one from Coleco. It wasn't a broad line. Very, very cheaply made figures. Red says, do you have any tips for young collectors like myself? Yes, Red, if you search on YouTube for analog toys, tips for action, I think it's tips for action figure collecting. It's a video I made a number of years ago. I think you'll find that helpful. Soviet Idiot says, what do you think of Super 7 figures, Tony? I've never had a Super 7 figure in my collection, I don't believe. So I cannot pass judgment. I don't know what they're like. Just seeing pictures of them online only kind of tells you half the story. You've got to actually have, for me to make an honest opinion of a figure, I need to have it in hand and see what the articulation's like. Clay 3613. Do any other human Kenner figures scale with the real Ghostbusters? I'm not sure. Good question. Certainly in the 90s, I think there would have been, like, I think a lot of when Kenner was doing like the Aliens and Predator lines, they probably would have scaled with Ghostbusters, maybe Silverhawks. Yeah, I'm not sure. Connor Fuller has got some advice for you here, Red. He says, be patient, hold out for a price that suits, too easy to go wild and overspend. Yeah, I completely agree. I may have been, so I took Grace to the pub for lunch yesterday. I've already mentioned that. We had some other friends join us for a steak lunch and a few beers. And by the time I got home after a few beers and the taxi ride, I got home and I was like, I'd made 3 eBay purchases on my phone. So, Retroblasting says, it seems like dominant scale of the market keeps slowly getting larger. In the 80s, it was 3 3/4 inch. In the 90s, it was 5 inch. Now it's 6 inch and 12 inch. Yeah, and it's almost like a sliding scale because action figures started with 12 inch, and then as we went through the 70s, I mean, in Britain it was a little bit different because Action Man kind of dominated the whole decade, but certainly in the States, you went from things like the $6 Million Man and G.I. Joe that were quite large, and then they slowly getting smaller with the Lone Ranger, Big Jim, Mego, although Mego did come in 2 scales. So in fact, Mego comes in a lot of scales, 3 3/4 inch, 8 inch, 12 inch. But yeah, they started out big. They went all the way down to 3.75 inch, and now they're slowly coming up. And certainly the most popular action figure scale today is the 6 inch line. I've become a huge fan of the Star Wars Black Series, particularly Empire Strikes Back figures. I have Boba Fett, I have Bosk. I was very kindly donated 4-LOM and Zuckuss to the channel in the 6 inch scale. So once you have 4 of the Empire Strikes Back 6 inch scale bounty hunters, you want to kind of complete the set. And I was looking around some time ago and finding that IG-88 and Dengar were very, very expensive. And then I took a random look on eBay earlier this week and found that IG-88 has come out on an archive card. So I purchased him, very normal retail price here in Australia. Picked up IG-88. So I'm like, damn, now I have to get Dengar. And that is an expensive action figure to get. But when I took a look, the figure looked really, really cool. So I bit the bullet and I paid, more than double retail price for a Black Series figure to get Boss to complete the Bounty Hunters. And I just know my luck. Within the next 3 weeks, Dengar, did I say Boss before? And I meant Dengar. I know my luck now that I've overpaid for that figure. He will come out in a few weeks' time on an archive card at retail price. So... Daniel Dorian, Analog Toys, would you ever do a playset live stream? I've often thought about doing a playset live stream. It's just trying to understand how I would achieve that. Like where would I set up the live stream? Because obviously I can only fit so many, I can probably only get 2 playsets on this table. Probably have to do it in the collection room. I would probably need a cameraman for that. So maybe that's something I can do later down the line. Yeah, George Aitkins is the space you would need for a playset live stream. Even when I did my Action Man Vehicles live stream, I had to put a much larger table in here, and this room is not very big. I don't have a lot of space for that. Scuba Pete, thank you very much for the super chat. He says, for that Valaverse habit, and cheers to buzzed eBay buying. Yeah, I'm not going to tell you guys what it was I purchased, but I did pick up a few things on. I've been buying a lot of stuff this last week. I bought a new camera. I'm getting ready for Iconicon. I need a second HD camera. I've only got the one here. It's not just for Iconicon. It's going to be very, very useful. But, I paid close to $400 for a new good quality HD camera. Got a number of toys coming. I purchased a open belly Tauntaun because I've only got one Tauntaun in my vintage Star Wars collection, which is a solid belly. I wanted the variation because when I was a child, I had the open belly one. So I purchased one of those on eBay. It hasn't turned up yet, but. Steve Gilmore, thank you very much for the super chat. He says, I'm involved in the toy photography community and Black Series figures are popular. I'm sticking with Action Man because I can't lose the accessories. But the 6-inch scale, it's not just the Black Series. Obviously, I'm not a massive fan of G.I. Joe classifieds, but I know a lot of other people are. The line has gotten better as it's gone on. But I am all in on Valaverse Action Force. I've pre-ordered the entire first wave of core characters. I've pre-ordered a few of the like the builder figures. I've ordered 2 of those, a ton of accessory packs. That's all 6-inch scale. So I'm really looking forward to bringing the audience of Analog Toys an in-depth review of that toy line when it eventually ships out to me. So. Black Chandelier Mirage says it's funny when some companies claim that they are 6-inch scale when Marvel Legends are 6.5-inch and Storm Collectibles are more so 1/10. Either make your mind or is that a marketing gimmick? Well, I don't think that they should call it a 6-inch scale because humans are naturally not all the same height. So to me, it's the 1/12 scale, which would be if the human that you're representing is 6 foot tall, at a 1/12 scale, he's going to be 6 inches tall. But Chewbacca is taller than that, so he's naturally going to be a taller figure, that kind of thing. So, maybe with the Marvel Legends, I don't know, like a lot of superheroes are quite tall. Thor's tall, Captain America's tall. So it can be the 1/12 scale and not actually be 6-inch. So as long as they're compatible, I don't see an issue. Connor Fuller, thank you very much for the kind super chat. This is a small contribution towards new kit, Tony. I really appreciate that. I have been buying a lot of stuff in preparation for Iconicon. I've been buying spare batteries because I'm intending to do for the 5-day convention, I'm intending to do at least one live stream per day, possibly more. I may appear on panels as well as hosting my own live stream. So I've quickly identified that I'm going to need a lot more equipment leading into Iconicon. So I really appreciate that. And Scuba Pete says here, Tony's all in on Motu Origins. I see the future where more shows up. Yeah, I mean, I've ordered Scareglow to complete Wave 2, and I really wanted to kind of stop there. As I mentioned in my Motu Origins video that came out yesterday, or probably earlier today for some of you guys, it was yesterday for me. I don't want to continue collecting that line due to space. However, Matt Swafford from Reclaimers Vintage Toys hit me up like last week, I think it was. He's like, hey, man, I've got a spare Ninja here. He's yours if you want him. And I was like, oh, Ninja's pretty cool. I'll grab that. I really like the look of the Land Shark. I'm not going to get Castle Grayskull because where I really like the fact that the Motu Origins, sorry, I'm looking over here because there's Motu Origins everywhere from where I was filming the last few days. Where these figures are a massive improvement on the originals, I've looked at that play set and it doesn't look to be as a huge improvement. Like I don't think that there was much wrong with the original vintage Castle Grayskull. There was a lot wrong with the figures, not so much with that play set. I did vote it the best action figure play set of the 80s, so... Scuba piece. Look, you're gonna need Mosquito. I don't know. I don't think I need Mosquito in my collection. Although for some bizarre reason, I have been on eBay looking for the WWE Motu crossover for. I'm not a wrestling fan, but I would like to get a Jake the Snake Roberts. I think that's cool. Michael Schaefer says there was a 3 3/4-inch Black Series set for Star Wars, about 115 figures. Yeah, there were actually a question I wanted to ask the audience because I keep abreast of what's going on with modern toys, but you know that's the kind of line that's kind of gone past me. Hasbro are no longer doing the 3 3/4-inch scale Black Series, are they? I'm pretty sure they're not. Like, because if I go onto eBay at the moment and search Black Series Star Wars, it's all 6-inch figures that come up pretty much. Gojatron says, Tony, in the 3.75-inch scale, do you prefer Star Wars, less articulation, sturdy construction, or G.I. Joe Action Force, more articulation but more fragile? Well, Palitoy Action Force was a combination of both. You know, the 5 POA construction and personally, I think I prefer the added articulation. Like my favorite 3 3/4-inch line. I can't choose between Palitoy's Action Force and Hasbro's G.I. Joe. I kind of see them all as being part of the same universe. G.I. Joe is my favorite 3 3/4-inch toy line. G.I. Joe Action Force. As much as I like Star Wars, I've always been more inclined to military themed stuff, and but saying that G.I. Joe Action Force, more articulation but more fragile. I mean, I didn't think G.I. Joes were that fragile. I know you can get broken crotches and thumbs, but they weren't that bad. There were different toy lines that certainly weren't anywhere near the same quality, but Saitama Skull says, Analog Toys, you have a lot of figures, but do you have a favorite? No. I have like favorites in each line, and sometimes in some lines I have list of like my top 10 favorites. I have some favorite pieces in my collection, a lot of which are things that have been gifted to me by dear friends, like the prototype Action Force SAS figures from Bob Breakin. I just cherish those. The custom Red Shadows Jeep that Sal made for me over at 2 Cents Toys. I absolutely adore that piece. And no one else I know there was, I think, a convention exclusive some time ago where they made it like this, but no one has got. This is a unique piece. It was made for me by Sal, so that's a treasured piece in the collection. Mike Bosa says, I'm going to get some Marauder figures to make Action Force army building. Yeah, the thing with Marauders, though, is that they are 4-inch. They're not 3.75 inch. So I've got a couple of Marauder Red Shadows that were donated to the channel. And they look awesome, but they are kind of slightly out of scale. But they may be making an appearance in a video very soon. Mark Heo says, Tony, do you have doubles, triples? I'm not a huge army builder, but I do army build certain figures that I particularly like. Action Man SAS figures, I like to army build. I've got quite a few of those. As in, the standard guy with the flash hood and the gas mask and everything. I also army build that figure in... Well, not army build. I've got like 6 of them, but to me that's army building. But yeah, to say, do I have doubles or triples? A lot of duplication in my Action Man collection. Like I have several German stormtroopers. I've got quite a few parachute regiment guys, SAS guys. In Star Wars, I've probably got like 6 stormtroopers. There are certain figures like that where I have doubles and triples. Keith Knight, yes. Stormtroopers, can't have enough of them. So Tony just answered the does scale matter question. The Marauder figures are too big. Scale does matter depending on the franchise that you're collecting, I suppose. So, Chris Miwa says, Stormtroopers and Cobra Bats. I would like to army build Cobra Bats. I would like to have 1 Cobra Bat in my collection. I don't. It's on that very, very long wants list. Daniel Dorian says the 84 Motu line is odd but interesting. Yes, I'm trying to complete the 84 line at the moment. As you know, on this channel, we've done collecting guides to 82 and 83. I'm going to try and do one day, 1984. Nostalgic for the 70s. So speaking of custom figures, I've added a custom Dr. Rudy Wells to the 13-inch line. And adding soon the $7 Million Man to my set. Man, they're awesome. I've seen a number of people who've done customs of those key characters from the TV show that were never made back in the day. As Michael says at Retroblasting, the fans are doing the best work. I'd really like to see a Dr. Rudy Wells and $7 Million Man. While I think of it, guys, I'm going to just put the Patreon, what do you call it, a ticker or banner or whatever on the bottom there. We will be doing the regular Patreon-only live stream after this stream today. To watch that, you just need to head over to patreon.com, search Analog Toys. Join us on Patreon. We have 4 different tiers that you can join But for the basic $1 a month tier, you get all of our videos 24 hours early. Or in the case of the Motu Origins one yesterday, you guys, Patreon only got it a couple of hours early, but they got a unique video with a scene that I had to delete from the main YouTube video due to a copyright claim. But there is a random Burt Reynolds musical number in the Patreon version of that video. So that even sounds random saying it's a random Burt Reynolds musical number, but there you go. Yeah, so the Patreon only live stream after this main show. Head over to Patreon for $1 a month. You get to view our Patreon only live streams after this. And today I'm going to be joined by my buddy Michael Schaefer. Michael Schaefer. He appeared on the Power Talk a couple of months back. So we may continue the conversation about scale, or maybe we'll just, have a chat and hang out. So I'm just going back to the comments here, making sure I haven't missed anything. Brian Dillingham, thank you very much for the super chat for Black Series habits. Yes. That's right, Scuba Pete. It's the Schaefer party. Andrew Sabina says, Lowell, were you watching Smoking the Bandit at the time? No, it's just, if you've seen that Motu Origins video, they've put the moustache on the action figure, but it didn't make him look like Duncan from the cartoon. Like, it's a black moustache instead of brown. It's a different shape, and it just looks like a Burt Reynolds moustache. So, Action Figure Expert, this is a great question. He says, what do you think, what do you look for first in an action figure, detail or articulation? For me, it's really about articulation. I need to, and that's why I prefer the original G.I. Joe over Star Wars, because of, don't get me wrong, I adore the original Kenner Star Wars line. I adore it. But I think G.I. Joe edged out Star Wars with the articulation that were included in the figures. Certainly with modern toy lines, it's probably a combination of both. Like, looking at this Boba Fett here, I really want a character that's going to be quite screen accurate. I'm not too concerned about the posability. Depends. Like my Bosk action figure is a great example. He is not super posable, but that doesn't bother me because I just have him standing in a glass cabinet like he was standing, on the bridge of Darth Vader's Star Destroyer. He wasn't in a firing pose, but if someone wanted to take Bosk and put him into a combat pose, you're going to struggle with the articulation in that figure to get him to hold his rifle and stuff like that. Yes, Shin Black Chandelier Mirage, articulation for sure. You can make something pretty, but this to me is a case of function over form. For playability, it needs to be articulation. Mark Heo, I used to match my Star Wars 3 3/4 inch with my Motu and pretend they were different races, Motu being giants. Yep, you're using some good imagination there. I mean, I particularly... I chose to only put kind of human characters on the table here to discuss scale, because monsters, on the other hand, can kind of be in any scale. Like, you can take a Star Wars Rancor and it can be a monster in your Motu line. It could even be a monster for either of these Indiana Jones figures to go up against. I actually think I filmed a shot of something like that in a Halloween video one time. So yes. Jeff72 says, for playability, it's all down to articulation. For collecting, it's down to detail. I actually think it's about striking a happy balance between the two. You know, if you're going to make something so well detailed and for some reason that detail and sculpting reduces the articulation of a figure, I think you're probably going wrong. Wolfie762 says, hell yeah, Bossk. He may just stand there, but you know he's going to do something cool as soon as the camera pans away, kind of like IG88. Yeah, maybe we'll see, because I'm pretty sure once I get Dengar and IG88, I'm probably going to make a video about Star Wars bounty hunters. Won't just be about the Black Series. I'm going to talk about the bounty hunter characters in the original Kenner line as well. Just kind of a whole video about the Star Wars bounty hunters. Melinda M says, if you had to choose between great detailed sculpts or great accessories and play sets, which is more important for a successful line for kids? I don't know as any toy company can produce a successful toy line for kids anymore. Certainly for boys anyway. Lego's kind of it, and once they get out of Legos, they start playing with iPads. For collectors, you know, I think I know Motu Origins is coming out with the Castle Grayskull playset. I'm glad that they are, but I'm going all in on Valaverse Action Force. It's going to be a long time before we ever see a vehicle in that range, and I don't think we'll ever see a playset. I don't necessarily need one for my collection. I just like the characters, and accessories have always been a really big thing for me. I like to have a lot of accessories with my figures to be able to customize them in a way where they can. One of the things I liked about the Rambo toy line, you know, they came jam-packed with accessories, Action Man, even G.I. Joes to a degree. Certainly as the line progressed through the 80s, you know, you started getting figures that would have, you know, a backpack, a sword or a knife, two different weapons, an animal sometimes, a lot of animals. The Rex says, can you mention me? Yes. Hi, Rex. How you doing? This sounds awesome. The Border Geek, he says, hey, Tony, enjoying a pint of Richard's Red while listening out on my deck here in Canada. Cheers, eh, mate? Yeah, cheers, man. That sounds cool. Someone's sitting out on their deck. I often sit out on my deck having a beer, watching retro blasting. So my balcony, I have a balcony with a wonderful view. All right, we've been going for about an hour, and I want to kick off the Patreon only live stream at 7:30. So before we wrap up, I've got this parcel here from John Baldry that I need to open. So if anyone's got any other questions about action figure scale, throw them in the chat. But I'm going to have a look here at what my friend John Baldry has sent me. John's been very, very generous with this channel. He's sent a lot of mystery boxes. Obviously, this isn't a box. This is a parcel, but he didn't even tell me he was sending anything. So thank you very much, John. He says, Tony, enjoy all. John B. John Lab Pulse, February 2021. Thank you. Wow, that took a long time to get here. February. Yeah, he shipped this on Feb 27th, and now, and saying that, this has been here. It took about a month to get here because I picked this up, I think, the day after the last live stream, so it's been sitting here for a week. But what have we got? Oh, it's John. You shouldn't have. It's not. I was going to say IG88. Then it's 8D8. And Michael Schaefer, who's joining me for the after show, sent me one of these the other week. See, guys, this is what happened when I talk to you about things missing in my collection. I don't say it because I want people to send me things, because then it ends up I now get two of them. But this is awesome. Thank you very much, John. There's nothing wrong with having two 8D8s in your collection anyway. You can always use some spare Star Wars figures. And there's something else in here as well. What have we got here? Ah, John. No way. So I have this guy in the post on its way to me. But John has sent me Pruneface, and this guy is in really, really good condition. In fact, this cape is so nice, it almost looks like a repro. I don't care if it is, but I don't think so. Pruneface. Wow. John, thank you very much. The reason I'm so excited about Pruneface, yes, I had this guy in the mail. He's got his rifle here as well. I'm just going to get that into his hand. Let's give you a good look at Pruneface. That's awesome. John, you have just completed my Vintage Kenner Star Wars run. The run that I want to get. I don't want to collect all of the last 17 figures. Man, thank you very much. The one that I have I actually found one, a Pruneface sealed on a card, but the card had really bad damage down one side. It had like been chewed by a rat or something like that. So I was going to get that here and actually open that. I may still open it, but that figure was actually cheaper than me purchasing a loose action figure. But that is the last figure that I need to complete the 77 run before you kind of get into the last 17, which I'm not interested in. I didn't have any of those as a child. I was only aware of Luke Skywalker. Man, this sort of, John, thank you so much. I really, really appreciate this. Yes, Michael Schaefer, I've completed the line. I now need to get to work on, that I've completed the line of action figures. I now need to get to work on quite a few other things. Still chasing that Y-Wing. I'd love to have a TIE Interceptor. I was looking around yesterday. I nearly purchased a Dagobah playset. Michael Schaefer is saying maybe you can get the last 17 as the next from Stan Solo. I'm pre-ordering every last 17 figure that's coming from Stan Solo. So Daniel says, Tony, would you ever get the other 3 Vintage Kenner Ghostbusters to complete your original line? I have already completed it. I've got the 4-core Ghostbusters. I've got Slimer, or the Green Ghost, whatever they call him. Mr. Stay Puft. I've got the Firehouse, and I've got the Ecto one. And I'll be doing a video about Kenner's Ghostbusters for Iconicon. It's going to be the big feature video that I'm going to contribute to Iconicon in July. Yes, the last 17 are way too Scott Hughes says, after nearly 40 years, I just realised that Pruneface was not in Jabba's palace, but in the rebel briefing. Is that true? So he's not a denizen of Jabba's palace? Because I've always thought that as well. So does he go with the Endor troops, or? Yeah, got Michael Schaefer saying there's 3 of his race in the briefing. Okay, I'm gonna stick in with my Endor soldiers. Joseph says, glad to be back. Great to see you, Tony. Awesome live stream as always. Yo, Joe. Thanks, Joseph. Appreciate that. It's wonderful to see you back here, my man. Really, really is good. All right, I think I'm going to wrap up the live stream there because I need to go and make a cup of tea. But get ready for the Patreon only live stream. I may do it in about 20 minutes, so you're not waiting too long. I just need to go and get a cup of tea and go to the bathroom. And so for anyone who wants to join us on the Patreon only live stream, and you're not already a patron, so that says 15 minutes there. Might be 15 minutes, 20 minutes, something like that. You need to head over to patreon.com and then search for Analog Toys, or you can use the web address down there, www.patreon.com/analog_toys. You can sign up for $1 a month, $2 a month, $5 a month, $10 a month. It's totally up to you. But for the basic package of $1 a month, you get all of our videos 24 hours early. And you get access to the Patreon only live stream. And I'll be joined today by my buddy Michael Schaefer. And I know I'm repeating myself now. So, Classic Action Figures says, thank you for the live stream. You're very welcome. Scuba Pete. Thanks, Tony. Thanks for being here, Scuba. Hope to see you on the Patreon only show after this. So, all right, guys, I'm going to sign off. I'm going to go make a cup of tea. And for the people on Patreon, I'll send you the link very soon. Michael Schaefer, I'll send you the invite link to join me on camera. And we'll have a chat. Awesome. All right. Hope everyone had a wonderful Easter and, you have a good week ahead of yourselves. So when will the next live stream be? Might do a Pala Talk next week instead of a traditional live stream. There won't be one on the weekend, though. I'm working the weekend, so we'll have to figure something else out. But I'll let you know on Facebook or on Patreon or whatever. So, all right. Take care, guys.